Uncensored, no holds barred talk. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is the Global Reality Radio Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live edition of the Global Reality right here on the Global Reality Radio Network. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Thanks for being with us here tonight for another live edition of the show. We were not live last night as there was not very much material, as there wasn't again tonight. But nonetheless, I'm here. I just pushed the show back a little later tonight and went ahead and went live anyway. So thanks so much for being with us. Whether or not you're listening live or you're listening on an archive later on down the road or you're listening on a YouTube video or anything else, thank you so much for choosing to listen to my broadcast and tuning in to hear what I have to offer and to bring to the table. And that's what we do here. That's what I'm going to continue to do here. So thank you so much. My website, theglobalreality.com. That's theglobalreality.com. It's where you find everything pertaining to my work, from my films to the radio shows to mini documentaries, all kinds of stuff up there, audiobooks, stuff like that people have made of readings of my show. And again, you know, those readings that I do on my show, that's that's me. I'm not doing those as intending those to be books on cassette like you'd go buy at fucking Barnes and Noble or something. You know what I mean? The fact they're even being called audio books is just something that, you know, a listener came up with and tried to decide that might be something, valuable to people. And it has indeed turned out to be valuable to people. But, I've gotten emails, people, I don't want to hear what your opinion on the information is. Well, that's what the show is about. I'm not just going to sit there and not filter the information through my own, 15 plus years of research. I mean, why? I mean, then that would be pointless of me even reading it. You want somebody to read to you, go fucking listen to, whoever go get yourself The Bridges of Madison County, read by Alec Baldwin or something like that. There you go. That sounds more your speed. And also another thing, listen, I appreciate all the support that we get here, large and small. And, sometimes people, they can only donate $5, and that's fine. Any amount, large or small, is always good. Some people, as low as $5 generally is about the lowest I've seen. And sometimes that's the lowest people can donate, whatever, that's fine. And I've had people that donate, $100, $200, $500, $1,000, whatever it may be, $2,000, whatever it may be. And out of all those people, I've never had anybody ever expect that was going to come with, some guarantee we're going to be buddies or pals or friends or, hang out or something. But, in some cases, I'm not above that. But, you know what I mean? It's like I've never had anybody demand that they were going to, come to my chat room and demand that I talk to them or demand that I have a conversation with them. And, most people just send an email, hey, blah, 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 this, that, and the other. And I'll send them an email back. And, generally that's how human beings converse. You know what I mean? Not a lot of stress, not a lot of drama. But somebody about a week ago had the audacity to donate 50 cents. And I don't know if you know anything about PayPal, but by the time you get raped by PayPal and their fees, your 50 cents turns into 18 cents. So I got 18 cents from this woman, and I know she's a woman, and then later got another $1.38 or something, both of which I refunded back to her because she came in the chat room the other day screaming, yelling, "You're going to talk to me! You're going to talk to me! Why won't you talk to me?" First off, it was the first time I'd ever even seen anything or had any correspondence from this person. But they come into my chat room screaming, yelling me at like a maniac, saying, "Why aren't you going to talk to me? Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me." I'm sorry. I've got enough crazy people to deal with, dealing with this information. I don't need crazy people that donate 50 cents. And by the way, here's another thing I got to tell you guys. We've had a big influx over the past couple of months of people from Australia, and it's been fantastic. And they've all been guys. And it's funny, I've known a few Australian guys for a few times through the years, and I've had a friend that lived in Australia before. And the guys I've met from Australia always say that Australian women suck, and that they all want American guys, and the American guys all say that, Australian women are easy to pick up, and the Australian guys say, Australian women, bleh. Well, I've got to say, I got to go. I think that you Australian men, because I've never had any problems with any, even in my real life and even on the radio doing the show and stuff, I haven't had any single problems really with anybody from Australia yet. But this person who, with their little 50 cents or 18 cents after the fact, and why won't you talk to me? By the way, gentlemen, you are correct in that assumption. She was from Australia. So there you go, Aussie men. You were once again proven correct. Aussie men get no respect. They're always screaming and yelling about stuff they're right about, and I'm right. They're always, they're always screwed or yelling about that. But anyway, no, I did. I said, what the hell? But look, I just don't even have time to deal with crazy people like that. You know what I mean? I'm not, it's not even about it. It's not even a snobbery thing. It's like going into a restaurant, man, and giving somebody, I understand. So somebody gives you shitty service and you want to, stiff them or, if they deserve it. But, don't insult me. That's an insult. 50 cents. Ace in the chat room, who was also from Australia, says Aussie chicks suck. Not in the right way, unfortunately. Oh man, yeah. See, I mean, that can't be just something that's not true. I mean, I've heard it from too many sources. Maybe it's not true, but I mean, I don't know, dude. I've met a few guys, quite a few from Australia. I've met quite a few people who've been to Australia that are guys, and all the way across the board, it's been Australian women are fucking crazy. They're fucking nuts. But then, like American guys go over there and they just love it because, they can fucking pick them up 2-3 at a time over there. If you're from America, that's one of the only reasons I've tempted going over there. But unfortunately, I have been scared off of Australian women for life now. That sucks. I really want to go over there and, tag me 6 or 12 of them at some point. But I guess, I mean, really, honestly, I've been scared off of them for life. I'll go to Australia, but I'm not going to go hunting for any wild game, if you know what I'm saying, while I'm there. Man. All right. Well, we've got it on good faith from Ace, and I've heard it from several other gents. Yes, I've heard that. Ace says Thai chicks rule. Okay. Yeah, I've heard that as well. But anyway, let's not get into a sexual geography lesson here tonight. We got plenty of other stuff to talk. But no, I mean, listen, again, I don't judge people by the amount that they donate or anything. But seriously, I mean, by the time PayPal gets through with their fees, that's one of the things that even sucks. If we do get some like a decent amount, sometimes people, we'll have a goal set and somebody will donate the amount that we have set for the goal. But what never gets accounted for is that, and I guess I need to just bump the chipping banner up or something to account for that, because what happens is every time, it just happens to me every single time that we have a goal or something set, we'll get that amount in, but then, here comes PayPal with their big wand, their big magical cock that they stick up your ass, and they're going to rape you for some fees. So you get to your goal, right? And somebody donates your goal, but then you're sitting there going, oh, fuck, I still got to come up with $107 before I meet my goal because we got raped by fees. You ever play a game Postal 2 where you go around blowing shit away? There's the bank in that game where you can go in and just, melee and tear up was called Fee of America, like make Fee of America. I love that. So appropriate. No, I mean, really, it's no shit. That's happened to me several times. You get all happy as you made your goal or whatever, and you oh, well, great. We can pay the bills this month to stay alive. And then you're like, fucking fees. I just got feed again. So, I'm like, shit. I got to go on here and tell people we're still haven't met our goal yet. Those fees get you, dude. And you don't really, you know what I mean? You don't know what it's going to be every time. It seems like to me, maybe it's in my mind, but to me, it seems like they fluctuate. And I've noticed like on some things, like you can go, if you go into your PayPal account and you use like my direct PayPal email, like dayglow76@yahoo.com, which is what my PayPal email is. If you go in and you just go into your PayPal account and you say send it to that, and you say it's a donation or you say it's a payment for something, it won't charge you the fee. It'll just let you give it across flat, and it won't charge me a fee at all. But when it goes through a chip-in banner, anytime it goes through the chip-in banner, that's the unfortunate thing about the chip-in banner. I've tried to find alternatives to it, but I haven't really found anything that's as good. But that's the unfortunate thing about the chip-in banner is that anything that goes through there, it's automatically a big chunk comes out of it for that. So, that's the whole thing. But seriously, man, 50 cents. I mean, you get 18 cents, and then you want to come scream and yell at me like a crazy person. Why won't you talk to me? Why won't I talk to you? Well, I think you just answered that question on your own there. Why won't I talk to you? Because you act like that. End of story. There's your answer. So if you were tuning in for the answer tonight to that question, well, you just got it. Oh, man. Again, plenty of crazy people I have to deal with when look at this. But, I have to say, you get a few of those sometimes. And sometimes you get more than other times. But, for the most part, there's a lot of people out there that are really awesome in the listening audience and stuff. And, if somebody's got a question about a piece of information or they want to talk about something, or they think they can help me out financially with some of this stuff, somebody they want to ask me, send me an email, I don't mind talking about to those type of people about any of that stuff. Never have. I send listeners responses back to emails and stuff all the time. And sometimes I read those on air and sometimes I don't. But, because sometimes people just, they want to ask you a question, but they don't want to do it in a public forum because, they don't want, everybody's always on such different levels of research. And that's 9 times out of 10 where arguments and confrontations come is because, in a chat room or a message board or something, you've got, my God, you got people from all over the world in these things. So you've got people from all over the place that are in different stages of their development, different stages of their understanding of this information. So you'll get somebody who's kind of a noob arguing with somebody who's an advanced researcher. And, neither one can get any ground because the other one thinks they know it all. And it just generally stems from people that are out at different levels of understanding this stuff. And so sometimes, people send emails and they don't want to ask a question in a public forum or something like that because they don't want to be embarrassed for not knowing certain things. Because, so people are like, oh, you didn't know that? You didn't know that? I can't believe you didn't know that, man. You're a noob. You know how it is. People make fun of each other and shit like that. It's just, it's easy to do. It's online, so it's anonymous. So people just feel they can just talk shit and there's no consequences. And it's true. We all do it. You do it. I do it. We all done it. And that's just all there is to it. So, I don't mind when people have, emails and stuff like that they want to send in and questions they want to ask. Man, I've continued to do more digging on the Rockwall thing, no pun intended, but the thing that I read the other night on the show about Sam Slick and the excavation where they went in and found this domicile of the giants and found all this stuff. It's interesting. I had no idea that in every so-called mound that's been built, have the mound builders, there were these specific type of, they call them Indians or Native Americans, but there was a couple of specific tribes that were known as giants. And these were known as the mound builders, the Serpent Mound in Ohio and other mounds. And I had no idea that in every single, this is absolutely true, in the United States, I don't know about elsewhere in the world, but in the United States alone, every mound that they have, that they've ever excavated, a ton of them in Ohio they had giant skeletons of giants inside of all these mounds. And it hit me like a lightning bolt the other night after reading that on the show that here these remains were allegedly found in Rockwall, and I started looking at the location on the map from my overlay on Google Earth of the Lance of the NASA map that John Lindsay had. It's online and stuff. You can search it and find it. But I overlaid it over my on the Mac over the new updated Google Earth so I could, get pinpoint stuff. And that's how I've pinpointed a lot of the outcroppings and parts of the wall and stuff. But I started looking at that location and what is now Heath that they were calling Buffalo, where this is taking place. And Heath is kind of, it's almost strange to consider. It's so close in Rockwall, and I guess it's in the city limits, or at least in the county limits. It's hard to consider it another part of Rockwall, but it is. But it's right there close. But it's not within the perimeter of the wall. It's on the outside of the wall. And it hit me like a bolt of lightning that all the area around downtown Rockwall, where the courthouse is, the old courthouse, that whole area is where you see massive elevation changes and where you see these big mounds. I mean, the route where Ralph Hall's office is on top of a mound. The whole downtown area is all mounds, and some of the outlying area is a little bit too. But this is the flatland up here. About 2 hours south of here, down towards Austin, that what they call that area down there. We're talking 150 miles, 200 miles max. They call that the hill country. Now, why do they call it the hill country? Because it's full of hills. Now, why don't they call the area up here in North Texas, only about 2 hours away? Why don't they call this the hill country? Because this is the flatland up here. So these hills are unusual. And it just hit me like a bolt of lightning. These hills are located on the outside of the perimeter of the wall, right? I mean, almost up against it. On the western wall of the wall itself, not within it. So it seems to me that it's very likely. Another thing, the oldest cemetery in Rockwall is located right near the courthouse, and is also located right near these mounds. And I'd found some data online where they had taken ground penetrating radar, because that's what I'm trying to get my hands on. Hey, if anybody out there is in construction or is in archaeology or is in anything that can help me out with people that know how to do or that can do or can read the data or have the machines or anything else that can do ground penetrating radar, please get in contact with me, globalrealityshow@gmail.com. I need some help on that immediately. I'm looking to try and find how much it costs to get the service done, or how much it costs to get a machine. I mean, I've looked at some of the machines; they're like $3,000 or something. But my problem is I'm scared to just hire somebody to come out and do it willy nilly. I want to at least get a couple of different opinions, because I'm afraid, because I know exactly I already know what's going to happen. What's going to happen is these guys are going to get out here, they're going to start getting readings on their machines that's going to blow their fucking nuts off, and they're not going to know how to explain it. And they're either going to think that the data is flawed or that their machine is messed up. And so I'm trying to avoid having, because the thing is, I've located some areas. We've got to contact the property owners and ask if they can just stand on, and we're not even going to do anything except stand on their land for just a few minutes. But like I said, all these places that didn't have fences before now have fences. And the location in Heath, what was then Buffalo, where they allegedly found this skeleton, giant skeleton that disappeared out of the Rockwall Success newspaper office, is also located it's south of where those hills in downtown are, but it's right directly on the same line of that western wall. So I was thinking it was possible, and it just hit me like a bolt of lightning, that's probably what those mounds are that they filled in and when they built on top of. The reason they never excavated those or didn't want anybody to dig in there, because apparently that's what the tractor had fell into, and they wouldn't let the guy retrieve it out of there, apparently because they know that these are graves, and they didn't want to disturb the graves, and they knew that there were giants in there. And back then, people were a lot more, superstitious as far as curses and dead bodies. And yeah, they might have been giants, but I think it scared the bejesus out of those old timers back then in the late 1800s to not want to disturb the grave of these sleeping giants, so to speak. And so I was doing some research last night following that lead of that, and I came across this timeline. Historical North American giants, 1792, New York, Buffalo, Turner's. Isn't that interesting? They found a giant in Buffalo, New York, and they found a giant in the area near Rockwall, what was then called Buffalo. Huh. I don't think that can't be a coincidence. New York, Buffalo, Turner's History of the Holland Purchase reports that 7 and 8 foot skeletons were found at an earthen fort in Orleans County with broad, flat-topped skulls. 1800 Ohio, Canoe, among the normal-sized skeletons found in the remains of the mounds were found gigantic bones. Some of the skulls and the jaws were large enough to fit over the head and face of a normal man. Tennessee, White County, an ancient fortification contained skeletons of gigantic stature, averaging at least 7 feet in length. 1825 Ohio Valley, David Cusick, a Tuscarora Indian by birth, wrote that among the legends of the ancient people of the stock, there was a powerful tribe. Now, this is when I'm starting to think that who the rock wall was built by. There was a powerful tribe called the Ranaguetawanka. Now, I'm going to say that's a huge word, and get a pen if you can. Get a pen, or if you're sitting near your keyboard, just type this into to either the search engine and then save it once you do that. Or get a pen and write this down, because I want you to have this piece of information to go research on, because this is my lead. This is who I think is the most likely candidate for the builder of the rock wall. There were an Indian tribe of giants called the R-O-N-N-O. So R-O-N-N-O. N-G-W-E-T-O-W-A-N-C-A. Ranaguetawanka. They were giants and had a considerable habitation. When the giant spirit made the people, some of them became giants after a time, and having endured the outrages of these giants, it is said that the people banded together and through the final force of about 800 warriors successfully annihilated the abhorrent Ranaguetawanka. After that, it was said that there were no giants anywhere. This was supposed to have happened 2,500 winters before Columbus discovered America in around 1000 BC. Now listen to this. This is it. Is this the one I was thinking of? Oh, no, not yet. But yet another one in Ohio, where the serpent mounds are located. 1829 Ohio, Chesterville. In digging away a mound where a hotel was to be built, a large human skeleton was found, but no measurements were made. It was related that the jawbone was found to fit easily over that of a citizen of the village. The local physicians examined the cranium and found it proportionately large, with more teeth than the white race of today. The skeleton was taken to Mansfield and has been lost sight of entirely. So again, every time one of these gets found, it immediately disappears after that, never to be seen again. Same thing with Rockwall. And so in all these reports, I find similarities in this report that came out of the Rockwall newspaper, which people have gone out of their way to try and say is a fake, which I don't believe it is. 1833, California, at Lompoc Rancho, soldiers digging at the giant Lompoc Rancho, California, discovered a male skeleton 12 feet tall. Carved shells, stone axes, and other artifacts surrounded the skeleton. The skeleton had double rows of upper and lower teeth. Unfortunately, this body was secretly buried when local Indians became upset about the remains. See, that's my way of thinking. That's what I'm thinking about. That's why there's been, the secrecy surrounding it. Because, look, science doesn't knows they're operating with flawed data on the wall. They have to. All their analysis is based on things that aren't the actual wall. But that's just fine with them, because if they have to actually look at real provable stuff, or they get their, if a giant skeleton gets unearthed, You know, that's the whole thing. Yeah, science doesn't want that to happen, because then that somehow proves that religion is somewhat right, and the atheistic view of science cannot have that in any way whatsoever. That's what's kept this thing buried. You would think your rational mind tells you that, oh, well, science should want to be all over this. No, not this. That's why science would normally be on any kind of ancient archaeology. People always ask, well, why aren't, archaeologists all over this? Because of the giant factor. That's the X factor in this whole thing. Because if they start unearthing giant skeletons around Rockwall and people figure out this was built by an ancient race of giants, and science verifies that, the religious right and the religious nut crew of the priest class is going to be going ape shit crazy and feel that it is a vilification of their phony religious bullshit that is based on misinterpretations. So the scientific community would rather take a nap and go to sleep on this data than to ever have to dare prove something scientifically that would back up what religion says. And the fucked up thing is, they're both serving each other. So, when I tell you that this rock wall thing has the ability and has the possibility to uproot both science and religion, I mean it. 1835, Lake County, Illinois. In the numerous mounds in the county, skeletons ranging between 7 and 8 feet are discovered. Every time they find mounds, they found giants inside of them. 1845, Virginia. A human jawbone of great size was uncovered in a burial mound on which the teeth stood transversely in the jawbone. 1849, New York. From the illustrations of the ancient monuments of western New York comes a report that an elliptical mound above near the Conewango Valley had 8 big skeletons. A thigh bone was found to be 28 inches long. Exquisite stone points, enamel work, and jewelry were also found. Also discovered in the area was a number of other large skeletons almost 9 feet in height. 1850, New York. From the history of Allegheny County. In 1879, a report that a very large human bones were uncovered during excavations for the railroad. 1851, New York. A skull, rib bone, a shin bone were found that indicated the height to be over 8 feet tall. 1856, West Virginia, Wheeling. A human skeleton was discovered by laborers while plowing a vineyard, and the skeleton measured almost 11 feet tall. 1858, Ohio, Vermilion Township. Skeletons of a race of beings much larger than the local inhabitants were discovered. 1870, Ohio, in Brush Creek Township. A large mound contains skeletal remains. Now, this is the key. This is the key one here that ties into the rock wall. A large mound contains skeletal remains of several humans up to 9 feet tall. A large stone tablet with unknown inscriptions similar to Greek writing was also found. Now, that's interesting, and I went and did some digging on this. It turns out it was a piece of slate, which is exactly what that report from the Rockwall Success newspaper said, that they clanked on the piece of slate and they broke through it. Well, this piece of slate that had these inscriptions on them, they said looked Greek, or they were hieroglyphs, just like the 2.5-ton garnet stone that disappeared out of the old Rockwall courthouse, and allegedly, again, I don't know for a fact, but allegedly the story is that it wound up in the possession of Ralph Hall. He was seen by inmates in the jail, in the middle of the night with some other men hoisting it out, and it had hieroglyphs on it, and it disappeared. And supposedly this was right near where these giant skeletons were found. Now, I have a picture of this slate stone that they found the giants under in Ohio, and I'm going to put a picture of that in the chat room first. And guess what? That slate with those symbols on it there, yeah, guess what? Big shocker, right? Yes, that subsequently disappeared as well. Nobody knows where it went. As did, and the second picture there that I'm about to put in is the, you're going to have to double click on that. It wouldn't just let me drop the picture. So just double click on the second link in there. That's the 2.5-ton garnet stone that nobody knows where it is now, but allegedly it's at Ralph Hall's house. That was also found near the rock wall where these giant skeletons were found. Now, I just found that too much of a coincidence to be just happenstance. That again, we have the same type of rock, sandstone. Actually, they said it was a sandstone covering, which is exactly what you see in a lot around the wall. There's sandstone formations. So again, lots of similarities there. I mean, this just goes on and on and on. Ohio, Zanesville, 1880. A skeleton was reported to have enormous dimensions found in a clay coffin with a sandstone slab containing hieroglyphs. That's what the picture I just dropped in there. Okay, that wasn't the other one. So that was a totally different case. So in 1870, in Ohio, they found a large mound that contained skeletal remains of several humans, and they found a large stone tablet with unknown inscriptions that also disappeared. And this just goes on and on and on and on. And every time we see these mounds and they excavate them, they find giants inside of them. So I'm starting to think, I'm starting to be convinced more, because both of the people that I talked to, both John Lindsay and the other guy, Dave Campbell, both of them said the same exact thing whenever I brought up the giants. They said, they were very quick to, that was some religious people who were, blah, 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 trying to back up their Bible stuff. It's all poppycock, and, that was just a pen name by somebody, blah, 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 blah. And, it's always been an instinct of mine whenever I hear people that have ever said something like that to me about something that I know not to be true. I can just smell it. I can just smell when it's bullshit. And in both the cases when those guys were saying that, I smelled the bullshit. And I think that's absolutely why, is that, my God, there's a second page to this that I didn't even see. It goes, wow. I mean, I only got to like the 1880s. This goes into 1882, 1883. I could read this all night. And it's amazing how many of these are in Ohio. Ohio seems to be a hot spot. Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Minnesota, Illinois, Arizona, California. I mean, we got people all over the place out there. I mean, if you live in any of these areas that I mentioned, and places where the landscape is not quite right and there's mounds and whatnot, hey, go out and take pictures of those. But absolutely, I think that's what we're dealing with here, and I think that's why there's been, I was going to say earlier, these mounds that are on the outside of the wall are near the oldest cemetery in Rockwall, and I saw some information the other day from a ground-penetrating radar survey that they did on this old, it's the oldest graveyard in Rockwall. And through ground-penetrating radar, they were able to locate 42 unmarked graves inside the old Rockwall Cemetery. And I found that very interesting, because there's some very old graves in there already, and it seemed odd to me that, way down underneath the rest of it, they found 42 graves of where something and somebody was buried that were unmarked. And boy, I bet there's, it makes me speculate and wonder if possibly, some of those, because they're so old, could be inhabitants of, of this ancient rock wall. But out in Rockwall off the lake there, they put a big Bass Pro Shops store there a while back, and my dad worked there for a couple of years after he got cancer. He worked there for a couple of years until he couldn't do it anymore, and he got on disability after that. But he had a customer come there one time that was actually had heard of the show and stuff. That he thought that was awesome. But I remember hearing and seeing on the news when they had started building and excavating to build this gigantic Bass Pro Shop thing. The funny thing is, it's right on the lake, and you can actually go to it while you're in a boat. You can actually go to the store from a boat. You can actually dock. It's pretty crazy. But they were talking about, when they were excavating this thing, they talked about on the news how they had found a bunch of Indian remains and had found an Indian burial ground there, and they were going to move them somewhere else or something like that. Well, I'd gone and subsequently looked high and low all over the internet, looked everything, news reports, That story was absolutely swept under the rug, but I saw it and several of my family members saw it. We saw it on TV as they were talking about it. And, hey, get out from underneath there. My cat just literally tried to sabotage the show again. He was underneath my feet because he wanted to get in my lap, and I wouldn't let him get in my lap. And he just got under my feet, and you hear that buzz? He was down there with his teeth pulling microphone cables out. I'm not shitting you. My fucking cat, that's the kind of shit my cat does to me. When it wants my attention, it doesn't want me to be on the air. Fuck off. No. Now he just went for the goddamn power supply on the other side of my foot. He's going maniacal over here. My fucking cat is an agent of the Illuminati. You working for the fucking CMP, you motherfucker? Fuck off. Oh, man. Worse than an old fucking woman. Nagging my ass. You've been fed. Your poopy box is clean. You got water. I don't know what the fuck else you want. What else do you want from me? I got nothing left for you. Cat, you fucking got it better than I do most days. Son of a bitch. Oh. Where was I? See, I get sidetracked with my damn cat. But anyway, yeah, I think that's... I think that's really why there's been such a, such a knee-jerk reaction. It just seemed that every time I would talk to somebody who looked into this rock wall stuff and I bring up the giant thing, they would just get this look on their face, this kind of, oh, no, that's horseshit, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, is it? But again, the reason is that, so you would think, think about it. This type of discovery, as old as this wall is, you would think that science would be all over this. But they're not. And it's easy to say that it's the religious types that are covering this up. That's what I thought originally. Because it challenges, the world being 10,000 years old, as they tell us. But that's absolutely not the case. It's science is the one that has the vested interest here because, evolution. Think about that. They're going to have to. This blows evolution to pieces, and that's really, to me, I think the main impetus. Look at the history of where the theory of evolution came from, and the theory of evolution is a smokescreen because it doesn't account for the rapid succession of evolution that human beings went through. That big gap in there where our DNA was tinkered with, they can't account for that. And when you do the research and find out that all the stuff for evolution, it all came out of Tavistock Institute and eugenics. It's a fact. It did. And that's a big time ideology for the globalists themselves. And, the religious right and the secret right, they're happy to take the blame for being the ones like Ralph Hall and stuff. Ralph Hall's probably laughing all the way to the bank right now. Oh, ha, 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 Josh Reeves, he thinks it's me and blah, blah, blah. He thinks I'm covering this up. Ha, ha, ha. Well, because they're always the scapegoats for everything else. So it's easy to just say that, this is the right wing and this is them covering the wall up and the giants and all that. But see, the giants are the thing that, it doesn't, to me, it's bullshit anyway for science to have this point of view that vilifies religion. And of course, atheistic science will never do anything that verifies religion. But the thing about it is, it's like that still doesn't let religion off of, that doesn't let them off the hook. Just because we find that there were giants on the earth does not mean that means that all religion just gets, an immediate free pass. Because they're still giving us only part of the story as well. They're not giving us the context that things like the ancient Sumerian text and other things give us. So they're not let off the hook just because we find out that there isn't indeed giants. So I don't know, but all I know is that just like everything I ever researched, the more I dig farther into this, the more I find out that, it's just ongoing cover-up. There's no real very little of the information that's even out there about the rock wall at this point, folks, can even be trusted. It's all flawed data. Yeah, it's very fascinating stuff, but it's all being based on things that aren't the wall itself, but things that were within the wall, structures within the wall. And even the dig that was done back in 98 didn't even scratch the surface. They went down 30 feet. That's not even a fucking scratch of the surface. GPR data, ground penetrating radar data from the last dig indicates that the wall is 80 feet below the surface. And they went down like 30 feet? No, baby. You got to go down deeper than that. See, I want to excavate a whole 80-foot side is what I want to do. Go all the way down to the bedrock. Get a whole corner into that thing exposed and have a bunch of cameras on every angle and you have GPR data, have payload magnetic survey data, all this stuff. And then we'll bring out the scientific community and have them tell us what they think that is. And it's going to happen. It is going to happen. Let's see if we got any emails in the stack here tonight to get into. Thanks again to everybody for being with us. TheGlobalReality.com is my website. GlobalRealityShow@gmail.com is my email address. You can send in emails anytime. GlobalRealityShow@gmail.com. And we have the chip-in banner and the donate button there. The chip-in banner is there for the bills for the month. Those will be coming up due next week. We just have the rest of our goal left on the chip-in banner there. And what we have left, I think it's like $600 left. That's what we need to pay the bills for the month. And that's coming up due next week. So hit that up and support us if you can. We also have a new chip-in banner there for the Rockwall film as well for our initial budget. So hit that up if you can. It'd be better if we just got $5,000 like up front as a budget or something, but we'll just go and try and nickel and dime it out and trying to do it any way I can here, Let's see what kind of emails we have. This is from Colton. He says, "Hi, Josh. I'm an author and a fellow seeker of truth. ColtonBach.com is my site. I just listened to all of your shows regarding the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, and I was wondering if you have had them transcribed, and if so, how could I get a copy?" Had them transcribed? You mean like transcribed as far as my readings of them, or the tablets themselves? I guess. Well, he's saying transcribed. That would mean my transcriptions of me reading from the shows. No, I wouldn't know how to do transcriptions. Never thought about ever even doing that. Sorry, Colton. No, I mean, I don't know how. I don't know anybody that would want to do that. We take it word for word and put it in print. I don't know. It's kind of boring. The shows are there. You can listen to them, But as far as the Emerald Tablets of Thoth being in print, yeah, you can go Google search that and find it and find PDFs and stuff of it out there pretty easily. But a transcription of me reading it, no, that's not available, and I can't foresee it ever being available, my friend. Sorry. All right. This is from Janaya. "Hello, heard you on Red Eyes. Do you know Freeman? If you search on Freeman TV, you will find him. You might be able you might find him to be a good contact. Not that you agree on everything, but still find some commonality. Enjoyed your interview." Yeah, I've known Freeman for a long time. I haven't talked to him in a while, but I knew Freeman before I ever went on air. In fact, he was one of the first people I talked to and met when I was talking about wanting to make a film and stuff like that. And before I even had my own show, I was guest hosting for somebody for a couple of shows. That's subsequently what got me a show. But the first radio show I ever did, I had Freeman as my guest. I brought Freeman up. I had him on a few times when I was on Oracle. I got him his show on Oracle, as a matter of fact. And if you listen to his intro music, "Come on and take a free ride," and that beaming out across the galaxy. Yeah, that's his intro voice thing is done by me. So yeah, thank you. I appreciate you with the offered hookup. But yeah, I've known him for a while, but I haven't talked to him in years. And but I don't have anything against Freeman. He doesn't have anything against me. I don't. We probably disagree on some things, but we're pretty common ground on a lot of other things. So. But he's a cool guy and he's a rad dude and he's the real deal. So, You know, he may not get everything right. Nobody does, but that's okay. Let's see what else we have. This is a good one from Ryan. Ryan says, Josh, despite your beliefs about why we went to war in the Middle East, do you think that Islamic extremists are a real threat to our nation? Also, do you think that if we totally were to take a different approach to that region, that they would still be a threat or a problem for America? Well, he has the same question. Well, let me answer that one first. Despite my beliefs about why we went to war in the Middle East, what do I think that Islamic extremists are a real threat to our nation? They absolutely are a threat, but they're a threat because we made them a threat, like we've made everybody and everything else a threat. All the extremism and things have been provocateured from the top down for years. They send it. I mean, they have guys that are actually Jewish that dress in turbans and act like they're Arabs and go out and proselytize to the, and they prey upon populist anger. You know, downtrodden people are very easy to take advantage of. And that's what they do. They send these guys in that they say are quote unquote Al-Qaeda leaders, that most of them are made up out of fiction, out of the thin air. And they go in and they provocateur. They tell them that, we got to kill America, and America's the devil and the evil devil, and we have to have the jihad and all this. And these guys believe what these Al-Qaeda leaders that are intelligence operatives tell them, and they go out and commit these acts, and they commit enough of them, and then it spreads out wider, and then they have more people that go out and provocateur people, and they're operating just like I was talking about the people, the science people, operating on the wrong assumption. They're operating on the wrong assumption too. The same as now people in this country, gun owners and right wingers and Christians and conspiracy theorists and people and everybody else are being radicalized to get up in arms against the federal government. So absolutely, they're a threat, but they're a threat because we made them a threat. We've been arming our enemies forever. We always arm our enemies, and then as soon as they get armed and they become a threat, we go, oh my God, they're bad. We have to declare war and attack them. So, yeah, they are. It is a real threat to our nation, but it's a threat to our nation that is being created and executed by the very same people that are telling us that we've got to go to war and defeat these people. It's a racket, it's a game, and it's a big global chess to these people. Lastly, I know exactly what you mean about calling people out on bullshit or on disrespecting you. They try to turn it around and make you feel like you're the loose cannon or you're the one that was out of line. I go through that shit on a daily basis. It seems as though there is a way too much of that shit going on nowadays. What it amounts to is so many people are used to other people being pussies, and it shocks the shit out of them when you stand up for yourself. Yeah, absolutely, Ryan. It sure does. And I experience that all the time myself. And, if somebody pops off and says something to you, don't take shit from anybody. I'm not telling you to go around half cocked and being an asshole and, snub your nose at everybody. But I mean, I don't know what's gotten in people's heads where they think they can just say whatever they want to you, and you're not gonna say something back. And then you say something back and they freak the fuck out. Columbus's log entry also mentions giants. I did not know that. That's pretty interesting. Oh man, oh man, oh man. Well, we got a few got a few news stories to get into tonight on the broadcast. Glad you could be with us. Not a big stack, but a few interesting things to cover tonight, and then we'll also be reading from Zachariah Sitchin's The End of Days. Continuing to get into all that good stuff. But right now, we're going to take a break, come back, and when we get back from the break, we will. Oh man, I've been doing radio for like 5 years, and you always hear about the dreaded call of nature in the middle of while the break's going on. And, you know, you always have this fear there's going to be drop trowel in the middle of dropping a deuce. And the music's going to run out. Yeah. We can go ahead and scratch that one off the to-do list. Thanks for being here with us tonight. I just dropped a deuce. Oh, man. That's too fucking funny. I'm not gonna go any farther with it than that, but you could just use your imagination. It was pretty hilarious. Oh man, I was trying to run back and make sure the music wasn't going to run out. It's too fucking funny. Oh man. Thanks for being here with us tonight for another late night Moonbat edition of the broadcast. We're going to get into some news stories here in this segment. And then we're going to read from Zachariah Sitchin's End of Days for you here tonight as well. Let's see what kind of crap we've got to get into here tonight. That's all crap. But it's highly entertaining crap. And sometimes a nugget of realness passes through. You know, not far. I was talking about the Giants earlier. You know, not far from here. In fact, I think it's only probably about an hour and a half, 2 hour drive or something. Maybe not even that. South of here in Glen Rose, Texas, they have fossilized giant footprints side by side next to dinosaur prints, and that's pretty interesting because there's this, I had heard that one of the theories on the rock wall that was built by some very, very ancient, we're talking in the 500 million year old range, reptilian type of humanoids that walked side by side with dinosaurs. And I just thought that was interesting that, and there's actually a picture that somebody had made, like an image of what that would look like. And it's just interesting to me that just, you know, an hour or so south of the rock wall, there's pictures of it. You can go to Glen Rose and see these things. They've got the imprint, toe and everything of a giant's footprint right next to dinosaur footprints that were made at the same time. And so I came across this article, and I thought it was interesting because it says, fossil footprints reveal oldest elephant herd. This is from Live Science. This came out on Tuesday this week. The world's oldest elephant tracks have now been revealed, 7 million year old footprints in the Arabian desert, researchers say. These prehistoric footsteps, likely the work of some 13 four-tusked elephant ancestors, are the earliest direct evidence of how the ancestors of modern elephants interacted socially, and the oldest evidence of an elephant herd. And it says fossil trackways in the region have been long known to locals and were taken to be the prints of dinosaurs or giants of ancient myth. It was not until January 2011, when researchers mapped the area from the air for the first time, that we realized what and how we had to go about studying it. So it's interesting that the longest time, these were considered to be giants, the prints of giants, meaning ancient feet. And now they're saying, no, these are four-tusked elephant ancestor prints, but yet they're not. I looked all through this article and looked through all of the links here and went and looked online everywhere, and I cannot find any pictures of these alleged prints. Now, what's interesting is that where they found these was in a site known as Melissa 1 in the United Arab Emirates. This is in Saudi Arabia. The region was then home to a great diversity of animals, including elephants, hippopotamuses, antelopes, giraffes, pigs, monkeys, rodents, small and large carnivores, ostriches, turtles, crocodiles, and fish. These were sustained by a very large river flowing slowly through the area, along which flourished vegetation, including large trees. Does that sound like the desert Saudi Arabia to you? It sounds like the Eden, or the Eden, as they call it in the Sumerian text, doesn't it? The animals resembled those from Africa during the same time period, though there are similarities with Asian and European species of that time. So they were moved around. Now listen to this. This is an article that came out on January 26th of this year from the Science Daily. Following genetic footprints out of Africa, first modern humans settled in Arabia. A new study using genetic analysis to look for clues about human migration over 60,000 years ago suggests that the first modern humans settled in Arabia on their way from the Horn of Africa to the rest of the world. So again, more and more findings now that are backing up these locations that were named in these ancient texts. Very interesting stuff there. Let's see what else we have. Putin praises Cold War moles for stealing U.S. nuclear secrets. Vladimir Putin praised Cold War-era scientists on Thursday for stealing U.S. nuclear secrets so that the United States would not be the world's sole atomic power, in comments reflecting his vision of Russia as a counterweight to U.S. power. So I guess all that red commie scare propaganda was warranted, huh? They really were stealing our nuke secrets. Only problem is you can't steal what's given to you. And that's the real story. Nothing was stolen. We just flat out gave it to them. There was no Cold War. It's all just bullshit for the public. Lies for them to sell more weapons and keep the population low. Some planets are alien invaders. February 21st, 2012, from Science Now. Some people reach for the stars, but the stars themselves seem to be reaching for the planets. Oh, shit. Oh, the Nibiru freaks are going to be going nuts over this one. I can already tell you. Oh, man. Everybody's going to be saying, it's Nibiru, it's here. The planet of the crossing has returned. I still like the Death Star idea, though. That's what I think it is. It's a ship, a Death Star-like thing. It's not a planet. Some people reach for the stars, but the stars themselves seem to be reaching for the planets. Although Earth and its planetary neighbors were born with the sun, a new study says billions of stars in our galaxy likely grab planets from the depths of space. The finding may explain the puzzling presence of worlds located far from their suns, and even suggests that our solar system could harbor a planet that lurks unseen well beyond Pluto. Oh, shit. So, this, wait. The finding may explain the puzzling presence of worlds located far from their suns and even suggests that our solar system could harbor a planet that lurks unseen well beyond Pluto. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, schnizzle. The motherfucking Nibiru rats are going to be going crazy. Oh, shit. Planets form from a disk of gas and dust orbiting a star, and so should not exist beyond the disk's edge. In recent years, however, astronomers have reported giant planets more than 100 sun-Earth distances from their stars, much farther out than Pluto, whose mean distance from the sun is 39.5 times greater than Earth's. Now, astronomers Hagai Peretz of the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and Thegis Kalvenhoven of the Cavalli Institute of Astronomy and Astrophysics at Peking University in China say the far-out planets once roamed space free of any star. Now, listen to that. These planets once roamed space free of any star, but they came in from the cold when their newfound suns captured them. Well, think about it. Listen to that. That sounds like a planet as a ship, doesn't it? These planets would roam free in space, free of any star. And then when it needed to warm back up again, so it's like it could retain its heat for a period of time. And then when it needs to warm back up again, they just push the ship over until the gravity of the star grabs a hold of it and orbit around it and heat back up again. Oh, yeah, that's going to make people shit bricks when they find out that, isn't it? All these planetary systems out there, the reason why there's so many of them is because every one of these is, yeah, you think it's a planet, but it's actually a big ship full of God knows what. Yeah. That's interesting. I'd never heard of that. I'd never heard of any free floating planets that float around out in space, free of any star. It didn't have to be in orbit or anything. Have you ever heard of that? I must have been out getting high or something that day when they were teaching that, because I don't remember that being taught in school. I mean, I never heard about free floating planets. I mean, I would have been hollering Death Star in 10th grade science class or something if I would have heard that shit. You mean, that's just, I mean, have you guys ever heard of that? I mean, am I the last of the party here? Have we just always known that, oh yeah, some planets are just free floating planets. They just free float around on their own. They don't even have to be in orbit around a star or anything. No. I love how they introduce some of this new information sometimes. They introduce it as if it's just, it's just something we've always known. Well, they do that so there's not a lot of fanfare so that people don't, raise a fuss about this. Such free-floating planets arise when other planets kick them out of their homes. Astronomers can detect them because their gravity magnifies the light of more distant stars. These observations should suggest that free-floating planets are roughly as abundant as stars. Free-floating planets are roughly as abundant as stars. So there are as many free-floating planets as there are stars. So this idea, see, that's why I think this bond between heaven and earth is like, it's fucking Scotty's transporter, essentially. So these gods would beam themselves down from this ship that was a planet that was orbiting around some star system for a period of time. They would build temples on Earth aligned to that star system. And then they would have a prophesized appearance and a prophesized return and a death and all that stuff. And the death and the return and all that would be based on them traveling from the transporter room. I'm giving her all she's got, Captain. Aye, dilithium crystals. They just transport back up at a certain time, and because the time in which they're orbiting around that sun and that ship is going to be drastically different than, what we can, what we perceive to be time on our venture around our sun. So it may be, only a few years, or in their time, it might be centuries and eons in our time. And then the alignment happens with those particular sites and those stargates, and the bond of heaven to earth opens again, and they transport back, and the prophesized return happens. But that would make sense as to why all these individual gods all had different alignments and different spots where they were said to be from. As many free-floating planets as there are stars. So there are as many planets that just roam around free like they're spaceships. Because most stars are born with others, Peretz and Kalmahoven ran computer simulations to see what happens when a star cluster contains free-floating planets. As the scientists report in work submitted to the Astrophysical Journal, if the number of free-floating planets equals the number of stars, then 3 to 6% of the stars succeed in capturing a planet, and some of the stars capture 2 or 3. Most of the captured planets end up hundreds or thousands of times farther from their stars than Earth is from the sun. Furthermore, most captured planets have orbits tilted to those native-born planets, and half the captured planets revolve around their stars backward. It's an intriguing suggestion to account for an unsolved puzzle. The more mass a star has, the greater its gravity and the greater its chance of catching a passing planet. Black holes could host planets, Parrott says. A black hole forms when a massive star explodes and collapses. The rapid mass loss liberates any orbiting planets, but a black hole is so massive that it can capture other worlds, he says. Our sun is more massive than most other stars. The sun itself could have captured another planet, says Peretz, who puts the odds of such a capture at a few percent. Any captured world must revolve so far beyond Pluto that its gravity does not perturb the known planets. Right, well, it can just sit there and sustain itself until it has to regenerate. Yeah. That's, I think that's just a highly synchronistic, highly interesting piece of info, right as we're reading about this same kind of stuff in the end of days that we've been reading here on the show. China preparing for space warfare. Straight the fuck up. And when you start seeing that, folks, that's when you're going to start to see false flag alien stuff and all this crap coming about. The weaponization of space, that's what Juan Braun said the whole thing would be for. Army Lieutenant General Ronald L. Burgess, director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, disclosed new details of China's space weapons program last week, including information regarding China's anti-satellite missiles and cyber warfare capabilities. Burgess stated in little noticed written testimony prepared for an appearance before the Senate Armed Services Committee that Beijing is developing missiles, electronic jammers, and lasers for use against satellites. Much of the space warfare activity is being carried out under the guise of China's supposedly non-military space program, he said. The space program, including ostensible civil projects, supports China's growing ability to deny or degrade the space assets of potential adversaries and enhances China's conventional military capabilities. China operates satellites for communication, navigation, Earth resources, weather, and intelligence surveillance, and reconnaissance, in addition to manned space and space exploration missions, he said. China successfully tested a direct ascent anti-satellite weapon missile and is developing jammers and directed energy weapons for ASAT missiles. Well, my God. You know, they're acting like this is some big news story. You understand we've had shit up there in orbit for 30-plus years. The United States has. That could fuck up any of this Chinese-made bullshit they're talking about right here in about 2 seconds. The shit we had 30 years ago could fuck it up. They had particle beam lasers. Hughes Corporation, anti-satellite, anti-UFO or anti-missile, you know, big little laser systems in like the late 60s, early 70s. The shit they got now makes that look like Tinker Toys. So, you know, any kind of this bullshit, and it's just like the fear-mongering of Iran. They're going to fear-monger China, too. China wouldn't have a fucking pot to piss in or a window to throw it out if it wasn't for us. But again, you know, we arm and we coddle our enemies so we can then, you know, have an excuse to pounce them later. I've talked about this sick shit before. These fucking Mormons doing these baptisms of the dead on people. They did a bunch of Nazis a few years ago. Claim services of Anne Frank's baptism by Mormons. A new claim has surfaced that the Mormon Church has posthumously baptized a Holocaust victim, this time Anne Frank. The allegations come just a week after the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints apologized when it was brought to light that the parents of Holocaust survivor of the Jewish rights advocate Simon Wiesenthal were posthumously baptized by church members at temples in Arizona and Utah in late January. You know, I haven't quite figured out. It's some kind of magic. It's some kind of stuff. It's absolutely Masonic in nature because the Mormon Church was set up as a front to practice Masonry in secret during the time of an event called the Morgan Affair, which was basically a Freemason raped and killed and ritualistic murdered somebody, and they got caught. And so, for a period of time in the United States, Freemasonry was outlawed. And so, Joseph Smith set up Freemasonry set up the Mormon Church as a front to practice Masonry in secret. But that's why they keep all the genealogical records and stuff. I don't know exactly what it is they think that they're getting out of this or what they're doing, but there's something to it. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. But I think it's just absolutely appalling. You know, the Mormon Church was every religion was found by people who were bloodlines that go back to the Levite tribes. The Levites, the white priests. I mean, that's the Brigham Young, Joseph Smith are in that bloodline. Charles Taze Russell, the Watchtower Society guy, Jehovah's Witness, yeah, he was one. He was in that bloodline as well. He was buried in a giant pyramid. You see that, you know, that hands symbol thing you see Jay-Z doing? That's a symbol of the Levites, the white priests. Every time you see Jay-Z and the hip-hop guys throwing up that symbol, they're giving a shout-out to the white priests. You know, it's no coincidence Nicki Minaj shows up, you know, with a white priest, a pope there. And that's what they're doing when they signify that. I mean, I've heard all kinds of stories like, like the Pope wrote some of the Sugar Hill Gang's lyrics. I don't know if that's true or not. That could be complete bullshit, but somebody sent me that. I think it was Rick that sent me that email about that. Somebody, but I'd heard that before he sent it to me, but somebody sent me that recently. I think it was Rick, but about the Pope writing some of the Sugar Hill Gang's lyrics. I mean, yeah, all the big music industry stuff, it's all tied back to those. It's all a way to keep the strength in the church. And if the only way you keep strength in the church is if you have devils and enemies out there that you have to, protect against. The same way they create Al-Qaeda and create religious extremists and everything else. This from the New York Times. The Pentagon says U.S. citizens with terrorism ties can be targeted in strikes. The Obama administration's top Pentagon lawyer on Wednesday said that the American citizens who join Al-Qaeda can be targeted for killing and that courts should have no role in reviewing executive branch decisions about whether or not someone has met such criteria. So, I mean, this is from the New York Times. So if the courts don't have any role in reviewing what the executive branch makes a decision about, whether or not someone has or hasn't met that criteria, that means that they just said right now that they have the ability to kill anyone they want if they just decide that person, they can just say you're with Al-Qaeda now and kill you, and nobody can fight it in court to prove it one way or the other. They just say you're with Al-Qaeda and then they kill you and that's it. And literally that's what this says. Belligerents who also happen to be U.S. citizens do not enjoy immunity where non-citizen belligerents are valid military objectives. What the fuck does that even mean? Belligerents? What is it? What constitutes being belligerent? I thought belligerent now was being, oh, fuck you, motherfucker. I'll kick your ass. Rah! Like a belligerent drunk. Rah! What does that mean? Belligerents who also happen to be U.S. citizens do not enjoy immunity where non-citizen belligerents are valid military objectives. So if there's a non-citizen belligerent who's and they don't even define what belligerent means. I thought this was supposed to be if you were with Al-Qaeda. So being belligerent now means you were with Al-Qaeda? And if there's somebody who's a non-citizen who they say is belligerent and they want to kill them, they can kill you too, even if you're a citizen, and they don't have to answer for it? Mr. Johnson's remarks offered an unusually comprehensive and public declaration of the Obama administration's national security legal policy views in the war against Al-Qaeda and its allies. While the outlines of those views have been aired in pieces before, officials usually discuss such matters only on condition of anonymity. In raising the target killing of an American citizen, Mr. Johnson emphasized that he was not talking about any particular operation. The administration had declined to discuss its killing last September of Ammar al-Awlaki, a New Mexico-born radical Islamic cleric who died in a drone strike in Yemen that technically remains a covert operation. Still, Mr. Johnson invoked a lawsuit filed by Mr. Awalaki's father before the killing that sought an injunction against targeting his son, citing what an approval a district judge decision to dismiss the case, and saying that targeting decisions are not suited to court review because they must be made quickly and based on fast evolving intelligence. Yeah. Kill them now, ask questions later. If we shoot the wrong person, oh well, we're always right. It doesn't matter. New revelations that Republican Rising Star Senator Mark Rubio was a Mormon as a child creates a major obstacle for his political future. Yeah, the Mormons are trying to take over. If it's not this religion, it's that religion. If it's not that religion, it's this religion. But guess what? They're all controlled at the top from the priest class religious hierarchy, and it doesn't matter what religion we're talking about. Judaism, Islam, Christianity, doesn't matter. Scientology, all controlled from the top down, all going back to these priests who gained power when they set up the ancient mystery schools. You guys hear about this? So a couple of months ago, they came out and said that Einstein maybe have been wrong. And with CERN, they've proven that he may have been wrong, and it sent the science world ablaze. Well, now they're saying that, a cable was loose. The world of science was upended last year when an experiment to show one of Einstein's fundamental theories was wrong. But now the lab behind it says the result could have been caused by a loose cable. Physicists at the CERN Research Institute near Geneva appeared to contradict Albert Einstein's 1905 special theory of relativity last year when they reported that subatomic particles called neutrinos could travel fractions of a second faster than light. Earlier on Wednesday, Science Insider, a website run by the American Association for the Advancement of Science, reported that the surprising result was down to a loose fiber optic cable linking a global positioning system satellite receiver to a computer. I love it. You know how much this thing costs? You know what the risk is if something goes wrong? Get all the best and brightest minds on the face of the fucking planet working on this thing. You're going to tell me that some little fiber optic cable didn't get plugged in and that one little fiber optic cable caused... Oh, come on. This is a cover-up. Every time there seems to be a revelation of some of earth-shaking proportions, they always come back and backtrack on it later and say, oh, never mind, it was just a loose cable. Yeah, but you've had, what, a month? Or how many? Or no, I mean, this happened last year, so you had months to come up with this. It didn't come out immediately. No, it comes out months later after they have time to formulate a fucking backstory. Give me a break. Earth may have a pulse every 60 million years that's been causing mysterious mass extinctions. Now, this is interesting. A mysterious cycle of booms and busts in marine biodiversity over the past 500 million years could be tied to a pulse of the Earth. A periodic uplifting of continents that results in the seas being too shallow for species to survive in, according to a new study. Researchers at the University of Kansas believe evidence for these uplifts lie in the increased amounts of an element found in the continental crust that they've subsequently detected in marine fossils whenever mass extinctions have occurred. The fact that the element strontium-87 is suddenly appearing in the ocean means that there must have been huge tectonic movements that the researchers believed played havoc with marine life. Adrian Malott, a professor of physics and astronomy at the University of Kansas, said strontium-87 is produced by radioactive decay of another element, rubidium, which is common in igneous rocks in the continental crust. So when a lot of this type of rock erodes, a lot more strontium-87 is dumped into the ocean, and its fraction rises compared with another strontium isotope, SR-86. Well, strontium, doesn't that come from nuclear reactions and nuclear reactors as well? I mean, if you're finding a bunch of strontium in the oceans, it's because you've got fucking Fukushima and all this other stuff spewing into the waters. What are they trying to... Oh, give me a break. Continental uplift increases erosion in several ways. Yeah, see, they'll find anything. Now continental uplift is some part of global warming or something. And now, oh my God, species are going extinct because of global warming and the strontium's going up. But meanwhile, we're just spewing strontium and all this other stuff into fucking... the unusual sounds emanating across the globe. That was all bullshit. That was a gigantic hoax. You didn't hear about that? I heard that was completely debunked and hoaxified. This didn't have anything to do with a hum. It doesn't have anything to do with a pulse or a sound. It's just an uplift. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there could be something to this, but it just seems strange. Mars quake, how signs of Martian earthquake could finally prove there is life on the red planet. There was life on the red planet. They got wiped out. A massive earthquake on Mars has been detected, suggesting there may have been active volcanoes and even reservoirs of water that could sustain life on the red planet. Scientists tracked a series of boulder falls that resemble the deadly 2009 tremor near L'Aquila in central Italy. Using photographs taken by the NASA Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, the boulders, which measures up to 65 feet in height, decreased over a radius of 62 miles along Mars' Cerebus Haas Fault. Look, they know everything there is to know about Mars. They have for a great amount of time. And, they're going to try and act like this, oh, we found signs of life there, so we got to go there. But it's just to cover up the fact they've already been going there and traveling there for years and doing all kinds of stuff. It's a bunch of horse shit. Anyway, that's all we got for the news tonight. We're going to get into reading Zechariah Sitchin's The End of Days here. As soon as I can pull all this up. Get a drink and all that stuff. All right. Zechariah Sitchin's The End of Days, picking up where we left off last show. As rare as solar eclipses are, the astronomical legacy of Mesopotamia included knowledge of the phenomenon, calling it the Atalu Shamishi. Textual references suggest that not only the phenomenon, but even its lunar involvement were part of the accumulated ancient knowledge. In effect, a solar eclipse whose path of totality passed over Assyria had occurred in 762 BCE. It was followed by one in 584 BCE that was seen all across the Mediterranean lands with totality over Greece. But then in 556 BCE, there occurred an extraordinary solar eclipse, not in an expected time. If it was not due to the predictable motions of the moon, could it have been caused by an unusually close passage of Nibiru? Among astronomical tables belonging to a series called When Anu is Planet of the Lord, one tablet, cataloged Vak Samash RM238, dealing with a solar eclipse, recorded thus the observed phenomenon. In the beginning of the solar disk, not in an expected time, became darkened and stood in the radiance of the great planet. On day 30 of the month, there was an eclipse of the sun. What exactly do the words that the darkened sun stood in the radiance of the great planet mean? Though the tablet itself does not provide a date for that eclipse, it's our suggestion that the particular wording highlighted above strongly indicates that the unexpected and extraordinary solar eclipse was somehow caused by the return of Nibiru, the great radiating planet. But whether the direct cause was the planet itself or the effects of its radiance, the gravitational or magnetic pull on the moon, the texts do not explain. Still, it is an astronomically historic fact that on a day equal to May 19, 556 BCE, a major total solar eclipse did occur. As shown by this map prepared by NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, the eclipse was a great and major one seen over wide areas, and a unique aspect about it was that the band of total darkness passed exactly over the district of Haran. This last fact is of the utmost significance for our conclusions, and it was even more so in those fateful years in the ancient world, for right after that, in 555 BCE, Nabu-Id was proclaimed king of Babylonia. Not in Babylon, but in Haran. He was the last king of Babylon. After him, as Jeremiah had prophesied, Babylon followed the fate of Assyria. It was in 556 BCE that the prophesied darkness at noon came. It was just then that Nibiru returned. It was the prophesied day of the Lord. And when the planet's return did occur, neither Anu or any of the opposed of the expected gods showed up. Indeed, the opposite happens. The gods, the Anunnaki gods, took off and left the earth. So that's the end of chapter 12. We'll get into a little bit of chapter 13 here for you tonight as well. And that is, of course, called When the Gods Left the Earth, conveniently enough. The departure of the Anunnaki gods from Earth was a drama-filled event replete with theophanies, phenomenal occurrences, divine uncertainties, and human quandary. Incredibly, the departure is neither surmised nor speculative. It is amply documented. The evidence comes to us from the Near East as well as from the Americas. And some of the most direct and certainly the most dramatic records of the ancient gods' departure from Earth come to us from Haran. The testimony is not hearsay. It consists of eyewitness reports, among them by the prophet Ezekiel. The reports are included in the Bible, and they were inscribed on stone columns. Texts dealing with miraculous events leading to the ascension to the throne of Babylon's last king. Haran nowadays, yes, it is still there, and I have visited it. It is a sleepy town in eastern Turkey, just a few miles from the Syrian border. It is surrounded by crumbling walls from Islamic times, its inhabitants dwelling in beehive-shaped mud huts. The traditional well where Jacob met Rachel is still there among the sheep meadows outside the town, with the purest, naturally cool water one can imagine. But in earlier days, Haran was a flourishing commercial, cultural, religious, and political center. So much so that even the prophet Ezekiel, who lived in the area with other exiles from Jerusalem, recalled her reputation as a trader in blue clothes, embroidered work, and in chests of rich apparel bound with cords and made of cedar. It was a city that had been, from Sumerian times, on an away from cult center of the moon god Nannar-Sin. Abraham's family ended up residing there because his father Terah was a Tiru, an Omen priest, first in Nippur and then in and finally in Nannar-Sin's temple in Haran. After the demise of Sumer by the nuclear evil wind, Nannar and his spouse Ningal made their home and headquarters in Haran. Though Nannar was not Enlil's firstborn legal heir, that rank belonged to Ninurta. He was the firstborn of Enlil and his spouse Ninlil, a firstborn on earth. Gods and men greatly adored Nannar and his spouse, the hymns in their honor in the Sumer's glorious times, and the lamentations about the desolation of Sumer in general and in particular, reveal the great love and admiration of the people for this divine couple. But many centuries later, Esarhaddon went to consult with an aging Sin leaning on staff regarding the invasion of Egypt, and that the escaping Assyrian royals made a last stand in Haran, served to indicate the continued important role played by Nannar-Sin in Haran to the very end. It was in the ruins of the city's great Nannar-Sin temple, the Ulhuhul, the House of Double Joy, that archaeologists discovered stone columns, stelas, that once stood in the temple, one at each corner of the main prayer hall. The inscriptions on the stela revealed that two were erected by the temple's high priestess, Ada Gupi, and by her sons Nabu-Id, the last king of Babylon. With an evident sense of history and as a trained temple official, Ada Gupi provided in her inscriptions precise dates for the astounding events that she had witnessed. The dates linked, as was then customary, to regnal years of known kings could thus be and have been verified by modern scholars. It is thus certain that she was born in 649 BCE and lived through the reigns of several Assyrian and Babylonian kings, passing on at the ripe old age of 104. Here is what she wrote on her stela concerning the first of a series of amazing events. It was in the 16th year of Nabopolassar, king of Babylon, when Sin, lord of the gods, became angry with his city and his temple and went up to heaven. And the city and the people in it went to ruin. The 16th year of Nabopolassar was 610 BCE, a memorable year the reader may recall, when Babylonian forces captured Haran from the remnants of the Assyrian royal family and army, and when a reinvigorated Egypt decided to seize the space-related sites. It was then Ada Gupi wrote that an angered Sin, removing his protection and himself from the city, packed up and went to heaven. What followed in the captured city is accurately summed up. And the city and its people went to ruin. While others fled, Ada Gupi stayed on. Daily, without ceasing, by day and night, for months, for years, she kept vigil in the ruined temple. Morning, she forsook the dresses of the fine wool, took off the jewelry, worn neither silver or gold, relinquished perfumes and sweet-smelling oils. As a ghost roamed the abandoned shrine, in a torn garment I was clothed. I came and went noiselessly, she wrote. Then, in the desolate sacred precinct, she found a robe that had once belonged to Sin. To the despondent priestess, the find was an omen from the god. Suddenly, he had given her a physical presence of himself. She could not take her eyes off the sacred garb, not daring to touch it except by taking hold of its hem. As if the god himself was there to hear her, she prostrated herself and in prayer and humility uttered a vow. If you would return to your city, all the black-headed people would worship your divinity. Black-headed people was a term by which the Sumerians used to describe themselves, and the employment of the term by the high priestess some 1,500 years after Sumer was no more, 1,500 years after Sumer was no more, was full of significance. She was telling the god that were he to come back, he would be restored to lordship as in the days of old, become again the Lord God of a restored Sumer and Akkad. To achieve that, Ada-Gupi offered her god a deal. If he would return and then use his divine powers to make her son Nabuna-id the next imperial king, reigning over all the Babylonian and Assyrian domains, Nabuna-id would restore the temple of Sin not only in Haran, but also in Ur, and would proclaim the worship of Sin as the state religion in all the lands of the black-headed people. Touching the hem of the god's robe, day after day she prayed. Then one night the god appeared to her in a dream and accepted her proposal. The moon god Ada-Gupi wrote, Sin, Lord of the gods of heaven and earth, for my good doings looked upon me with a smile and heard my prayers. He accepted my vow. The wrath of his heart calmed. Toward Ehulhul, his temple in Haran, the divine residence in which his heart rejoiced, he became reconciled, and he had a change of heart. The god Ada-Gupi wrote, accepted the deal. Sin, Lord of the gods, looked with favor upon my words. Nabuna-id, my only son, issue of my womb, to the kingship he called, the kingship of Sumer and Akkad. All the lands from the border of Egypt, from the upper sea to the lower sea, in his hands he entrusted. Both sides kept their bargain. I myself saw it fulfilled, Ada-Gupi stated in the concluding segment of her inscriptions. Sin honored his word, which he spoke to me, causing Nabuna-id to ascend to the Babylonian throne in 555 BCE. And Nabuna-id kept his mother's vow to restore the Ehulhul temple in Haran, perfecting its structure. He renewed the worship of Sin and Ningal. In all the forgotten rites he made anew. And then a great miracle, an occurrence unseen for generations, happened. The event is described in the two stelae of Nabuna-id, in which he is depicted holding an unusual staff and facing the celestial symbols of Nibiru, Earth, and the moon. This is what the great miracle of sin that has, by the gods and goddesses, not happened in the land since the days of the old unknown. That the people of the earth had neither seen nor found written on tablets since the days of old. That Sin, Lord of gods and goddesses, residing in the heavens, has come down from the heavens in full view of Nabuna-id, king of Babylon. Sin, the inscriptions report, did not return alone. According to the text, he entered the restored Ehulhul temple in a ceremonial procession, accompanied by his spouse Ningal and his aide, the divine messenger Nusku. The miraculous return of Sin from the heavens raises many questions. The first one being, where in the heavens had he been for 5 or 6 decades? Answers to such questions can be given by combining the ancient evidence with the achievements of modern science and technology. But before we turn to that, it is important to examine all the aspects of the departure, for it was not Sin alone who became angry and, leaving the earth, went up to heaven. The extraordinary celestial comings and goings described by Ada-Gupi and Nabuna-id took place while they were in Haran, a significant point because another eyewitness was present in that area at that very time. He was the prophet Ezekiel, and he too had much to say on the subject. Ezekiel, a priest of Yahweh in Jerusalem, was among the aristocracy and craftsmen who had been called together with King Joachim after Nebuchadnezzar's first attack on Jerusalem in 598 BCE. They were taken forcefully to northern Mesopotamia, settling in the district of the Khabur River. just a short distance away from their ancestral home in Haran. And it was there that Ezekiel's famous vision of a celestial chariot had occurred. As a trained priest, he too recorded the place and the date of it, and it was on the 5th day of the 4th month in the 5th year of the exile, when I was among the exiles on the banks of the river in Kabar, that the heavens opened up and I saw visions of the Elohim. Ezekiel stated at the very beginning of his prophecies, and what he saw, appearing in a whirlwind, flashing lights, and surrounded by a radiance, was a divine chariot that could go up and down and sideways, and within it, upon the likeness of a throne, the semblance of a man. And he heard a voice addressing him as Son of Man, and announcing his prophetic assignment. The prophet's opening statement is usually translated visions of God. The term Elohim, which is plural, has been traditionally translated as God in the singular. He's absolutely correct there. Elohim is plural. Anytime you see that term, they're not talking about one individual, they're talking about multiples. But they always try to say that, oh, Elohim means God. Oh, just one God. No, that's not what it means. That's a misinterpretation that's being done with intent. It has been traditionally translated as God in the singular, even when the Bible itself clearly treats it in the plural, as in, and the Elohim said, let us fashion the atom in our image and after our likeness. Genesis 1, verse 26 says, the readers of my books know the biblical Adam tale is a rendering of the much more detailed Sumerian creation text, where it was an Anunnaki team led by Enki that used genetic engineering to fashion the atom. The term Elohim, we have shown over and over again, referred to the Anunnaki, and what Ezekiel reported was that he had encountered an Anunnaki celestial craft near Haran. The celestial craft that was seen by Ezekiel was described by him in the opening chapter, and thereafter as the god's kavod, that which is heavy. The very same term used in Exodus to describe the divine vehicle that had landed on Mount Sinai. The craft's description rendered by Ezekiel has inspired generations of scholars and artists. The resulting depictions have changed with time as our own technology of flight vehicles has advanced. Ancient texts refer both to the spacecraft and aircraft and describe Enlil, Enki, Ninurta, Marduk, Thoth, Sin, Shamash, and Ishtar, to name the most prominent as gods who passed aircraft and possessed aircraft and could roam Earth's skies or engage in aerial battles, as between Horus and Seth, or Ninurta and Anzu, not to mention the Indo-European gods. After all the varied and textual descriptions and pictorial descriptions of celestial boats of the gods, the most appropriate to Ezekiel's vision of a whirlwind appears to be the whirlwind chariot, depicted at the site of Jordan, from which the prophet Elijah was taken up to heaven. Helicopter-like, it had to serve just as a shuttlecraft to where a full-fledged spacecraft was stationed. Ezekiel's mission was to prophesy and warn his exiled compatriots of the coming day of judgment for all the nation's injustices and abominations. Then, a year later, the same semblance of a man appeared again, put out a hand, grabbed him, and carried him all the way to Jerusalem to prophesy there. The city, it will be remembered, went through a starving siege, a humiliating defeat, wanton looting, a Babylonian occupation, and the exile of the king and all the nobility. Arriving there, Ezekiel saw a scene of complete breakdown of the rule of law and of religious observances. Wondering what was going on, he heard the remnant sitting in mourning, bewailing, Yahweh sees us no more. Yahweh has left the earth. This was, we suggest, the reason why Nebuchadnezzar dared attack Jerusalem again and destroy Yahweh's temple. It was an outcry virtually identical to what the Adagupi had reported from Haran. Sin, the lord of the gods, became angry with his city and his people, and went up to heaven, and the city and the people in it went to ruin. One cannot be certain how or why events occurring in northern Mesopotamia gave rise to a notion in distant Judea that Yahweh too had left the earth, but it is evident that word that God and gods departed had spread far and wide. Indeed, tablet VAT 7847, which we mentioned earlier in connection with the solar eclipse, states the following in a prophetic section regarding calamities that last 200 years. Roaring, the gods flying from the lands will go away. From the people they will be separated. The people will the gods' abodes leave in ruin. Compassion and well-being will cease. Enlil in anger will lift himself off. Like several other documents of the Akkadian prophecy genre, scholars deem this text too a post-event prophecy, a text that uses events that has already happened as the basis for predicting other future events. Be that as it may, we have here a document that considerably expands the divine exodus. The angered gods led by Enlil flew away from their lands. It was not just sin who angered and left. Here is yet another document. It is classified by scholars as belonging to prophecy in Neo-Assyrian sources. Though its very first words suggest authorship by a Babylonian, a worshiper of Marduk. Here is in full what it says. Marduk, the Enlil of the gods, got angry. His mind became furious. He made an evil plan to disperse the land and its peoples. His angry heart was bent on leveling the land and destroying its people. A grievous curse formed in his mouth. Evil portents indicating the disruption of heavenly harmony started appearing abundantly in heaven and on earth. The planets in the ways of Enlil, Anu, and Ea worsened their positions and repeatedly disclosed abnormal omens. Aratu, the river of abundance, became a raging current. The fierce surge of water, a violent flood like the deluge, swept away the city, its houses and sanctuaries, turning them to ruins. The gods and goddesses became afraid, abandoned their shrines, and flew off like birds and ascended to heaven. What is common to all these texts are the assertions that A, the gods grew angry with the people, B, the gods flew away like birds, and C, they ascended to heaven. We are further informed that the departure was accompanied by unusual celestial phenomenon and some terrestrial disturbances. These are aspects of the day of the Lord as prophesied by the biblical prophets. The departure was related to the return of Nibiru. The gods left Earth when Nibiru came. The VAT 7847 text includes an intriguing reference to a calamitous period of 2 centuries. The text does not make it clear whether that was a prediction of what is to follow the gods' departure, or whether it was during such a time that their anger and disappointment with mankind grew, leading to the departure. It seems that the latter is the case, for it is probably no coincidence that the era of biblical prophecy regarding the nation's sins and the coming judgment on the day of the Lord began with Amos and Hosea circa 760 to 750 BCE, 2 centuries before the return of Nibiru. For 2 centuries, the prophets from the only legitimate place of the bond of heaven and earth, Jerusalem, called for justice and honesty among people and peace among nations, scorned meaningless offerings and worship of lifeless idols, denounced wanton conquests and pitiless destruction, and warned one nation after another, Israel included, of the inevitable punishments, but to no avail. So we're going to stop right there. We'll pick up reading next time. This is what I've been waiting to get into here. I want to see how this, why did they leave? Did they indeed really leave? Where did they go? Did they go to space? Did they go back into the earth? Did they go through portals within the earth? There were rumblings within the earth. See, that makes me think that they, made it appear that they flew off out into space, but maybe actually flown into the earth and flown into other portals and stuff. Who knows? But, good stuff there. I want to thank everybody for being with us tonight. Please support our work, folks. We definitely need your support right now. This film's going to take a lot longer to make. We're going to get a lot less done if stuff just trickles in a little bit at a time. We could really stand to get some support in a big way on the film right now. By big way, I mean, a few $100, $1,000, whatever. I mean, if there's somebody out there who can help us in a big way to help us fund this film, please do so now. And also help out our chip-in banner so we can pay the bills. I think we have about $600 left on the chip-in banner. We got to get by next week so we can get all the bills here paid. Please help us that way. We have a donate button as well you can use. We have a P.O. box if you absolutely can't use PayPal. And you can also get the See Right Volume 2 on Blu-ray and DVD at my website. My name is Josh Reeves. I love each and every one of you. We'll see you tomorrow. You guys have a great one. Take care.